From looking back at my preliminary work, I think that I've improved hugely in terms of skills I've developed when designing my media products. I've explored a range of technical layers since then, thinking about the colour schemes, font combination, and done plenty of research into conventional designs and patterns within the music magazines, enabling me to use this as inspiration for my own brand. In terms of camera shots and mise-en-scene, my photography has achieved a higher standard of quality overall, as I've been able to take into consideration many more external factors, including the camera setting, the lighting, and costume prop relevance in the photo. Styling my models has also been a huge improvement since my preliminary, as I've zoomed in every little detail within a photo, from their hairstyle to the watch on their wrist, creating professional photos with minimal mistakes. I also now have a much better understanding of where to position models within a frame, experimenting with landscape and portrait and distance between the models in terms of camera focus. My preliminary showed minimal attempts to recognise variation in mise-en-scene, using the school white photography room for every photo, showing no use of natural light, whereas my final media product has covered a broad range of locations and lighting. I did not even consider using more than one model in a frame during my preliminary, showing that my camera skills were restricted, but now I've used both 1, 2 and 3 models in a frame, which shows the progression of my camera work. The mise-en-scene in my full product has created contrasting colour and has worked successfully to fit my indie rock alternative genre, whereas my preliminary photography didn't and only showed a quite dull look through the magazine. Evidently, I've also adapted a very crucial photography technique, capturing photos where the models are centrally looking into the camera lens, creating a personal level with the reader, directing their attention to the magazine. A variety of shots have also been learnt since my prelim, using close-ups, mid-shots, long shots, taking them at high and low angle positions. This has taught me how to create power and capture the reader through camera work. In my preliminary, I have also used mid-shots and did not capture a range of mise-en-scene. I also think overall I now consider plenty more external factors when thinking about photography and how to capture the best photo, taking into account mise-en-scene and camera work directly. From doing my preliminary work, I feel that I've learned a lot about the general look of text and its arrangement within the pages in my magazine. I now understand what fonts work well in certain genres like my indie rock alternative style, and how to incorporate more than one on the same page to create a range of interest to the reader. I have learnt the use of professional, high-quality fonts through my magazine to represent a band well and realistically. I've also learnt about the power of standalone pictures and the importance of captions on graphical images to keep the professionalism. This, in comparison to my preliminary, is very different, as I've used basic dual fonts which failed to draw the reader in and didn't really fit within the style at all. I used Photoshop to enhance my fonts and create a bigger and bolder look where needed, such as the masthead and some cover lines. This wasn't done effectively during my preliminary, as I didn't have any previous inspiration from current indie magazines like Loud and Quiet, DIY and NME. The arrangement of text on my preliminary was very minimal and lacked any layering skills, whereas my final product looks at blurring, shadows and font letter spacing to create contrast. My masthead, cover lines and photos are placed within conventional places in my final product, showing a realistic look, whereas my preliminary is not and doesn't look professional. When comparing my editing, I've improved a lot. During my preliminary, the most I attempted was cutting out the front page image. However, my final product has used photos in many ways to achieve the look I wanted. For example, I created a Starry Night background from scratch using Photoshop features to achieve a realistic and believable look. I also experimented with contrast, brightness, exposure, etc. on my photos to maximise their quality, which before I didn't even look at. The design of my preliminary contents to my final product's contents also outlines a big improvement. When producing my preliminary, I did not consider how many pages a magazine averagely has, only including a maximum of 25 pages. Looking back, I realistically understand how unrealistic my approach was. Therefore, in my final product, I made sure I had done my research properly and decided to create a magazine based on 90 pages, as I noticed similar indie rock alternative magazines had the same amount of pages depending on their price. The overall look of my contents page was inspired by Loud and Quiet and DIY. follow a conventional, simplistic look.